As a medical doctor, I spend my days caring for the body, studying its incredible ability to create life, to endure change, and to heal. But today, I want to speak about something that medicine cannot always measure: the quiet, unseen fears that live in a woman's heart during and after pregnancy. We often celebrate pregnancy as a miracle, a time of glowing happiness. But behind the joy, there is another story, one that rarely gets told. It's the story of a woman who wonders, in the stillness of night, if she will still be loved when her body changes, after 2, even 3 births. It's the story of doubt, of longing, of fear that love might fade while life expands in her arms. Tonight, I have the privilege of introducing a woman who bravely shares that story, not as a patient, not as a statistic, but as a mother, a wife, and a human being navigating the deepest questions of love, desire, and identity. Her voice is honest, raw, and filled with emotions we all feel, but rarely speak. She will take us through her journey, from the first whisper of fear to the courageous steps of reclaiming herself. Prepare yourselves to enter her world, the doubts, the joys, the tears, and the victories. This is not just a story about pregnancy. It is a story about love, resilience, and the courage to be seen. I promise you, by the end, you will not just listen, you will feel, reflect, and perhaps even recognize yourself in her journey. Now, before we listen to her lovely and heartfelt story, please, if you have not subscribed to this channel, now leave whatever you are doing and like, share, subscribe, and comment on this channel to enable us get your feedback and improve on our communication and interaction with you as we prepares our subsequent episodes. Please press the subscription button now. Now, let's hear from the courageous Mrs. Victoria Anderson.
Silence has a sound. It hums softly in the dark, when the world is asleep and my thoughts are wide awake. It sits beside me on the bed, between the steady rhythm of his breathing and the questions I pretend not to hear. During the day, I am laughter and light. At night, I am careful, listening, wondering. There is a question I have never asked out loud, not because I don't trust him, but because I am afraid of the answer, even if it never comes. It always begins the same way. The house is quiet, my phone is face down, the mirrors are avoided. I lie still and stare at the ceiling, tracing invisible lines while my mind drifts to places I try to avoid during daylight. That is when the thought returns, gentle but persistent, like a knock I refuse to answer. Will he still love me when my body changes? It feels like a selfish question, even shameful. Love is supposed to be deeper than skin, stronger than time, louder than fear. We are taught this early. Love is vows and promises. Love is forever. Love is what we celebrate at weddings with music and smiles and perfect dresses. Love is what we believe in, until doubt slips quietly into the room. I am happy. Truly happy. I am loved in the way women dream of being loved. He looks at me like I am home. He holds my hand in public, laughs at my jokes, listens when I speak. There is warmth here, safety, a future that feels real and close enough to touch. And yet, beneath all that happiness, something hides. It is the fear no one warns you about. The fear that arrives not because something is wrong, but because something is precious. The fear that asks, what if this beautiful thing breaks? My body has been my companion my whole life. It has carried me through joy and pain, through growth and healing. But it is also the one thing I know will not stay the same. Time promises that. Life demands it. Stretch marks, softness, scars, weight, age, these changes are not maybes, they are guarantees. I wonder when I started measuring love against my reflection. Perhaps it was the day I noticed my clothes fitting differently, or the first time I caught myself holding my stomach instead of standing freely. Perhaps it was the casual comments from the world, how beauty is praised when it is young, firm, untouched, how women are admired for being put together, maintained, unchanged. No one says it directly, but we learn it anyway. Your value lives in how you look. So even in love, real love, that lesson follows me. I imagine moments that haven't happened yet, marriage, children, years passing quietly. I imagine my body changing in ways I cannot control, and I wonder if desire fades as gently as love claims to stay. I wonder if affection survives familiarity. I wonder if promises are strong enough to carry us through physical transformation. I want to believe they are. He has never given me a reason to doubt him, not once. And yet, doubt does not always need evidence. Sometimes it is born from history, from stories we've heard, from women who whispered their disappointments into the night, from marriages that looked solid until they weren't, from the quiet comparison between who we are now and who we might become. This is the part no one talks about, the part where love feels strong, but fear feels honest, the part where happiness coexists with insecurity, where joy does not erase vulnerability, where a woman can be cherished and still feel replaceable. I carry this question carefully. I tuck it behind smiles and shared plans. I dress it up as confidence and push it down with gratitude. After all, shouldn't love be enough? But at night, when the silence returns, I feel the weight of what I do not say. I wonder if he will still look at me with the same hunger when my body tells a different story. I wonder if tenderness can outlive attraction. I wonder if love remains when beauty becomes memory instead of mirror. And maybe the real fear isn't that he won't love me. Maybe the fear is that I don't yet know how to love myself through change. So I lie there, listening to the quiet, holding on to the warmth beside me, and asking a question I have never spoken aloud. A question wrapped in hope, fear, and longing. What happens to love when my body changes? This is where my story begins. Before the stretch marks, my body felt like an open door. I didn't think much about it then. I lived inside it without fear, without negotiation. I wore clothes because I liked them, not because they hid anything. I stood in front of mirrors without calculating angles or holding my breath. My body existed, and I trusted it to stay familiar. Back then, attention came easily, not loudly, not desperately, but naturally. A look held a second longer than necessary, a smile that lingered, compliments that arrived without effort, without asking. I was called beautiful in passing, desirable without trying. It felt normal, like oxygen. I didn't realize how much I was breathing it in. He noticed me then. The way his eyes found me in a room made me feel chosen, not just seen, desired, not evaluated. There is a specific kind of confidence that comes from knowing someone wants you, your body, your presence, the way you move through space. It settles into you quietly and convinces you it will never leave. I remember how touch felt effortless, how attraction felt assumed, how intimacy carried no questions, no second guessing. I didn't wonder if my body needed permission to be loved. It simply was. Pregnancy had not yet entered my thoughts as a transformation. It was an idea, distant and abstract, a future version of me that felt separate from the woman I was. I believed, without realizing it, that there would always be a clear line between now and later, between who I was and who I might become. But even then, comparison was already learning my name. I would catch myself imagining the after without knowing why. A softer stomach, wider hips, skin that told stories I hadn't lived yet. I told myself it wouldn't matter. I told myself love was stronger than surface changes. I told myself I was above those fears. Yet sometimes, in quiet moments, I wondered what would be lost. Would desire still arrive without effort? Would compliments still come unprompted? Would I still feel chosen or merely committed to? Would love feel the same when my body no longer matched the memory of how it began? There is a strange grief in anticipating loss before it happens. I didn't say any of this out loud. I smiled through the future. I spoke of babies with excitement and certainty. I let joy lead the conversation, while fear sat silently in the back, taking notes. Because before the stretch marks, my body felt like proof that I was wanted, proof that attraction was easy, proof that love and desire were walking side by side. And somewhere deep inside, I feared that once my body changed, love might stay, but desire might hesitate. I didn't know then how unfair that comparison was, how cruel it was to measure a future body against a past one. But fear does not need logic, it only needs imagination. So I held tightly to who I was, to the smoothness, the firmness, the version of myself that felt unquestioned, not because I loved her more, but because I was afraid of what loving the next version would require. This chapter of my life was light. It was ease. It was unearned confidence. And even now, when I think of her, the woman before the stretch marks, I don't miss her body as much as I miss how safe she felt inside it. Pregnancy arrived like a miracle wrapped in surrender. One day, my body belonged only to me. The next, it carried purpose beyond my choosing. Everyone called it beautiful, and it was, but no one warned me how quickly beauty could feel unfamiliar. At first, I was excited in the way women are expected to be, smiling, glowing, proud of the secret growing inside me. I touched my stomach often as if to convince myself this was real, that I was really becoming someone's home. But somewhere between the joy and the appointments, something shifted. My body stopped asking for permission. The mirror became a storyteller I wasn't ready to listen to. Each week, it revealed changes I could not slow down or negotiate with. My waist disappeared quietly. My breasts felt heavy with intention. My skin stretched, pulled forward by life insisting on space. I watched myself change in real time. People celebrated what I was gaining, but no one acknowledged what I was losing. Control, familiarity, the simple comfort of knowing where my body ended and I began. I learned quickly that pregnancy is praised for its miracle, but silent about its grief. Because grief lived there too. I felt it in the mornings when my clothes no longer fit, in the way I avoided mirrors some days and studied them too closely on others, in the strange disconnect between gratitude and fear. I was growing a life, and yet I was quietly saying goodbye to a version of myself I had not planned to lose so soon. Joy and fear learned to share the same breath. I loved my baby fiercely, instinctively, even before I could feel a kick. That love felt pure and unquestionable. But loving the baby did not erase the ache of watching my body change beyond recognition. It did not silence the voice that wondered if I would ever feel like myself again. No one tells you that you can be thankful and sad at the same time. I mourned silently, not dramatically, not loudly, just in small moments, when I caught my reflection unexpectedly, when I noticed how differently he looked at me, when I felt more like a vessel than a woman. I worried that my body was becoming public property. Everyone touched, everyone commented, everyone had an opinion. It was no longer just mine. I told myself this was temporary, that sacrifice was part of the story, that motherhood required loss before reward. Still, at night, when my hands rested on my growing stomach, I wondered if love could survive this transformation, his love and mine. Could I love this body for what it was doing, even if I no longer recognized it? Could I forgive myself for missing who I used to be while carrying who I was becoming? The hardest truth was this: I didn't want to choose between loving my baby and loving my body. I wanted both, and I didn't know yet if that was allowed. So I stood between miracle and mourning, excitement and grief, holding life inside me while quietly letting go of myself. And this time, the question wasn't just whether he would still love me. It was whether I would. Confidence does not shatter all at once. It cracks quietly. Mine broke the way glass does when the pressure is gentle but constant. No dramatic fall, no single cruel moment I could point to and blame, just a series of small things that settled into me and refused to leave. I remember the first time I felt it, really felt it. It wasn't something he said. That would have been easier. Words can be confronted, apologized for, explained away. This was silence, a pause where warmth used to live, a glance that didn't linger, a moment where I waited to be seen and wasn't. Silence can be louder than rejection. I told myself I was imagining it, that pregnancy had made me sensitive, that hormones were rewriting my emotions. I smiled through it, nodded, stayed light. After all, strong women don't complain about invisible wounds. But insecurity had already learned my address. Comments came next. Not cruel, not unkind, just careless. Observations disguised as jokes. Questions about bouncing back. Stories about women who let themselves go. None of it was aimed directly at me, and yet all of it landed exactly where I was already hurting. Each word left a mark. I began studying myself the way I once studied others, measuring, adjusting, standing in mirrors longer than necessary, searching for proof that I was still enough. I learned how to dress strategically, how to angle my body, how to laugh before anyone else could laugh first. On the outside, I was calm, radiant even. People called me strong, glowing, beautiful in that careful way reserved for pregnant women, softened by expectation, wrapped in obligation. I thanked them and kept moving. Inside, I was splintering. I stopped asking for reassurance because I was afraid of needing it. I stopped voicing fear because I didn't want to sound ungrateful. I became fluent in pretending confidence, pretending peace, pretending that nothing had changed inside me even though everything had. Strength became my costume. I learned how to carry myself like I wasn't questioning my worth, how to speak with certainty while doubting my reflection, how to love loudly while fearing quietly. I hid my fear behind responsibility, behind motherhood, behind the belief that this was simply what women endured, because admitting insecurity felt like failure. the hardest part wasn't the doubt itself, it was how alone it felt, how easily it hid behind smiles, how no one noticed the moment my confidence first cracked, not even me. I only knew that something had shifted, something fragile had been exposed. And once confidence cracks, it changes how you hear everything. Every look feels loaded, every silence feels intentional, every distance feels personal. I began bracing myself without knowing what I was protecting myself from. This was the beginning, not the breaking, just the first fracture. The moment fear took root and learned to grow quietly. The moment I realized strength could be a shield, but it could also be a prison. And so I kept smiling, because I didn't yet know how to ask for what I needed without feeling like I was asking for too much. No one prepared me for the moment after the miracle. They told me about labor, about pain, about pushing, about the first cry that would change everything. They did not tell me about the silence that followed, or the mirror waiting quietly on the other side of birth. The first time I looked at myself afterward, I didn't recognize the woman staring back. My body felt empty and heavy at the same time. Loose skin rested where life had just lived. Stretch marks bloomed like stories written too quickly. Scars whispered of survival. My eyes looked older, tired in a way sleep alone could not fix. I touched my stomach, expecting it to disappear the way the baby had arrived. It didn't. It stayed, soft and unfamiliar, like proof that something had happened that could not be undone. I felt shock before I felt pride. Exhaustion wrapped itself around everything. It sat in my bones, blurred my thoughts, softened my edges. I cried without warning, over nothing, over everything. Tears came when I saw my body, when I felt distant from myself, when I wondered how something so miraculous could leave me feeling so lost. I loved my baby with a depth that surprised me, fierce, immediate, unconditional. But love did not erase the quiet grief rising in my chest. I was grateful and grieving, proud and disconnected. I had become a mother, but I didn't know where the woman had gone. Desire felt like a memory, not a feeling. Beauty felt like a story I used to believe in. My body no longer felt like something to be admired. It felt like something to recover from. I dressed for comfort, not confidence. I avoided mirrors, then punished myself by standing in front of them too long. I wondered if he noticed, if he saw the same things I did, the changes, the softness, the distance between who I was and who I now appeared to be. He was gentle, patient, careful, but even kindness can feel heavy when you are already questioning your worth. At night, while feeding the baby in the quiet hours, I asked myself questions I never said out loud. Am I still enough? Enough to be desired, enough to be chosen again, enough to be loved without comparison. There is a loneliness in postpartum that has nothing to do with being alone. It is the loneliness of living in a body you don't yet understand, carrying expectations you don't yet know how to meet. I wanted reassurance, but I also wanted proof. Proof that love could see past scars. Proof that attraction could survive exhaustion. Proof that I was more than what I had lost. But mostly, I wanted to recognize myself again. So I stood there, facing the stranger in the mirror, holding a baby who knew me better than I knew myself, caught between gratitude and doubt, between the woman I had been and the one I was becoming. And for the first time, the question felt heavier than ever. Am I still enough? This was the moment I realized that healing would not begin with my body, but with how I learned to see it. I never stopped loving him. If anything, my love grew deeper, quieter, steadier, rooted in shared nights and whispered clans. He was there in the exhaustion, in the early mornings, in the way life suddenly revolved around something smaller than both of us. He showed up. He stayed. And yet, somewhere inside me, doubt learned how to coexist with love. I would look at him and wonder what he truly saw. Did he see the woman he married, or the body that had changed? Did he see strength, or only survival? When his eyes rested on me, I searched his face for answers I was too afraid to ask. Every smile felt reassuring. Every pause felt suspicious. I measured his love in glances and gestures, reading meaning into moments that were never meant to carry such weight. The fear of rejection was never spoken, but it was always present. It sat between us during quiet evenings. It hovered in the space where intimacy used to feel effortless. I wanted to reach for him, but fear held my hands still. I was afraid of confirming what I imagined, afraid that desire had faded and that love was now fueled only by commitment and responsibility. So I stayed silent. I told myself I was protecting us, protecting him from my insecurity, protecting myself from disappointment. I convinced myself that strength meant enduring quietly, loving without asking for reassurance. But silence has a way of growing into distance. Not physical distance, emotional. I laughed when he joked. I listened when he spoke. I supported him the way I always had. But I stopped sharing the parts of me that felt fragile. I stopped letting him see how deeply I questioned myself. I built a version of myself that looked okay on the outside and asked for nothing on the inside. Unshared emotions create walls you don't realize you're building. I missed him even when he was right beside me, missed the closeness we used to have, the kind that came from honesty, not just presence. I wanted him to reassure me, but I didn't know how to invite reassurance without feeling weak. So I loved him silently, carefully, from a distance I created without meaning to. The hardest truth was this: my fear wasn't rooted in anything he had done. It lived entirely within me. But love does not exist in isolation. When one heart pulls away in self-protection, the other feels it, even if it doesn't understand why. I wondered how much longer I could carry this alone, because loving him was easy, trusting myself was not. And in that quiet struggle, I learned that doubt doesn't just change how you see yourself, it changes how you love. The fear didn't stop after the first. If anything, it learned how to multiply. Once my body had changed, I could imagine it changing again and again. The thought of another pregnancy no longer felt like a simple dream. It felt like a question layered on top of another question, a future filled with more stretch, more softness, more letting go. I began to imagine the weight of 2, then 3. Not just children in my arms, but changes written deeper into my body. I wondered how much more I could give before there was nothing familiar left to recognize. Each imagined pregnancy felt like another step away from the woman I once was, another version of myself I might have to mourn. The fear grew quietly with each possibility. I feared that love might wear thin under repetition, that attraction might weaken with every transformation, that patience might fade as sacrifice piled up. I knew these thoughts were unfair, but fear rarely asks permission before it settles in. My body began to feel like a promise I wasn't sure I could keep. With every imagined birth, expectations grew heavier. To be nurturing, to be strong, to bounce back, to carry life beautifully and recover gracefully, to remain desirable while giving endlessly. The world applauds mothers for their sacrifice, but rarely asks how much of themselves they are allowed to lose. I carried those expectations like another child. Some days I felt proud of my resilience. Other days I felt crushed beneath it. I wondered how many times a woman could rebuild herself before the rebuilding became too exhausting to begin again. Is there a limit to reinvention? I thought about my body not as it was, but as it would be, changed again, marked again. Would I still recognize myself after the second, after the third? Or would I become a collection of roles, mother, wife, caretaker, without a clear reflection of the woman underneath? The fear was not just about appearance. It was about identity, about whether I would still feel like me when so much of me had been given away, about whether love could stretch as far as my body was expected to. And still, I wanted more children. That truth complicated everything. Desire and fear stood side by side, holding hands. I wanted the life we were building, even as I worried about the cost. So I carried the weight of the future quietly. 2, then 3, each number heavier than the last, each possibility asking the same silent question. How many times can a woman break herself open and still feel whole? I didn't know the answer yet, but I knew this. No one teaches you how to prepare for the weight of becoming more while feeling like you are slowly disappearing. There is a kind of pain that photographs cannot capture. After birth, everyone wants to see the happy moments, the tiny fingers, the first smiles, the perfect nursery. They want to celebrate the miracle. And I did. I still do. But alongside those moments exists a quieter, darker kind of trauma. One that hides in the spaces between applause, in the silence after, "How are you feeling?" is asked and quickly answered with, "I'm fine." I bled in ways no one could see. Not just physically, though that was exhausting enough. I bled from the inside, from the sudden weight of responsibility, from the grief of a body that felt like a stranger, from doubts that whispered, "Am I enough?" Society does not prepare you for this. In fact, society often refuses to acknowledge it. Postpartum pain is hidden behind smiles and soft lighting. It is masked by hashtags celebrating the bounce back, the glow, the effortless mother. But real motherhood often feels like survival, not performance. And when you tell people you are struggling, they offer platitudes. You'll feel like yourself again. It's temporary. You're strong. You can handle it. I wanted to scream that strength and survival are not the same, that resilience does not erase sorrow, that love for my child did not dissolve my fear, my grief, my quiet longing for my former self. Being told to bounce back while still bleeding inside is a cruelty wrapped in kindness. It suggests that pain must be hidden, that vulnerability must be silent, that transformation must be seamless. But it isn't. My body reminded me daily. My emotions reminded me constantly. Every mirror, every physical ache, every sleepless night whispered, "You are not the same." The loneliness of this unspoken truth is heavy. No one asks about the nights I cried holding my baby, or the times I felt disconnected from my own life. No one notices the scars under the surface, the ones sown from self-doubt and quiet fear. You are expected to love, to nurture, to smile, to endure, all while reconstructing your body, your identity, and your sense of belonging in the world. And yet, I carry it silently, because talking about it feels selfish, because fear of judgment is louder than the need to speak, because even when the world sees a mother, they do not always see a woman. This trauma, the invisible kind, is heavy, but it is real, and naming it is the first step toward reclaiming the pieces of yourself that feel lost. It is the moment you whisper to yourself, "My pain is valid. My grief is real. I am allowed to feel more than happiness." We celebrate new life endlessly, but we rarely honor the women who gave it, who survived it, who carry it long after the applause fades. And maybe it is time we do. Because if we do not speak of it, who will know it even exists? For a long time, I believed that strength meant never trembling, never doubting, never showing cracks. I thought being strong was synonymous with perfection, holding everything together while silently shouldering every burden. But motherhood has taught me a different truth. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is not the absence of doubt, insecurity, or tears. Strength is standing up while trembling. Strength is asking for help while afraid of judgment. Strength is naming your fears and still choosing to move forward. I began to see my vulnerability not as a weakness, but as a mirror of my humanity. The moments when I admitted to myself that I was scared, scared of my body, scared of rejection, scared of failing my children, were the moments I became stronger. Because it takes courage to feel fear and still hold love in your heart. It takes courage to wake up each day and care for someone else when you are still learning to care for yourself. I also realized that my fear did not isolate me. The silent suffering of women is everywhere. So many mothers look like they are managing effortlessly, but inside they are navigating storms similar to mine. They hide bruises that aren't visible, exhaustion that doesn't show in photographs, and insecurities that don't come with instructions on how to overcome them. Yet we survive, we endure, we love, and we carry on. Acknowledging fear became an act of rebellion against the impossible standards set for us. It taught me that I could embrace my imperfections and still be enough, that I could love my body even when it bore the marks of change, that I could love my husband even when I doubted my desirability, that I could love myself even when self-doubt whispered that I wasn't whole. Real strength, I learned, is messy, it is quiet, it is persistent, it is resilience wrapped in tears, laughter, and vulnerability. It is realizing that being afraid does not erase your value, it enhances it, because you confront life even when it terrifies you. And finally, I understood something crucial. Fear is not something to hide. It is a companion, a teacher, and sometimes a warning. By naming it, by allowing myself to feel it, I discovered the depth of my own capacity. I am not fearless, but I am courageous. I am not perfect, but I am whole. Strength is not the absence of fear. It is the willingness to face it, to live with it, and to keep moving forward anyway. And in that, I found not just resilience, but freedom. There are words that live in your throat, words you practice in front of the mirror, words you whisper to yourself in the quiet hours, words that never leave your lips because saying them feels too vulnerable, too risky. I wish he knew how often I replayed those sentences in my mind. Do you still see me the way you did before? Do you still want me the way I want you? I wished he could hear the questions behind my smiles, the trembling behind my laughter, the quiet panic behind my calm. I wanted reassurance, not loudly, not desperately, but softly, naturally, without fear of shame. I wanted him to see me, really see me, the way he had before the pregnancies, before the stretch marks, before the scars. I wanted him to choose me every day, to choose me not just because I am his partner, not just because we share a life together, but because he still desires me, because he still finds me beautiful, because he still remembers the woman I was and chooses the woman I have become. I wanted love that goes deeper than skin, love that sees beyond softness or scars, beyond the changes I cannot control, love that recognizes the courage it takes to give life, to endure sleepless nights, to carry invisible burdens and still stand.
I wanted him to see that the body may change, but the heart that loved him long before our children, that continues to love him now, remains steadfast. And I always hoped, that I could feel chosen again and again, not as a duty, not as an obligation, but as a deliberate, conscious decision he made in every glance, in every touch, in every quiet "I love you" that passes without fanfare. I wanted to know that desire and devotion can coexist, that love does not fade when bodies change or life becomes more complicated, that commitment and passion are not opposites, but companions. But I never spoke these words aloud. I was afraid that naming them would make me sound insecure, weak, or ungrateful. I feared that the simple act of asking would shatter the delicate balance we had, even though, in truth, asking might have brought us closer. So I carried the words silently, tucked between smiles, hidden behind hugs, whispered only to myself in the dark. And yet, I hope he knew. I hope he could sense the longing beneath the calm. I hope he understood that my love has never wavered, even in moments of fear, even when I doubted myself. I hope he felt that choosing me again and again is not just something I wish for, it is something I need to survive, in this body, in this life, in this love. Because love is not just about the past we shared, it is about the present we navigate, the future we imagine, and the choice to keep choosing one another despite all the changes, fears, and uncertainties that life brings. I wish he knew. I am still here. I am still me, and I want to be chosen again and again. Healing is not a single moment. It is a series of small, fragile steps, each one requiring patience, courage, and permission to be imperfect. I learned this slowly, painfully, beautifully, as I began to reclaim the woman I thought I had lost. At first, it was simply noticing myself again, touching my body without judgment, looking in the mirror and finding more than flaws, running my hands over the skin that once scared me, whispering gratitude instead of criticism, learning that kindness toward myself was not indulgence, it was survival. I began to understand that beauty is not only about smoothness, symmetry, or youth. Beauty is in the stretch marks that mark the lives I carried. Beauty is in the softness that speaks of late nights, feeding, and lullabies. Beauty is in the scars, the lines, the curves, the changes that whisper, "You endured, you survived, you created." Reclaiming myself meant accepting change, not as a loss, but as proof of life lived fully. My body was no longer a measure of desire or worth. It was a living record of strength, of love, of endurance. The woman I had been before pregnancy and the woman I had become after were not opposites, they were a continuum. Each mark, each shift, each imperfection told the story of survival and resilience. I learned to move differently through the world, slowly, carefully, sometimes awkwardly, but always intentionally. I let myself love my body without expectation of perfection. I let myself enjoy intimacy without fear of judgment. I let myself feel desirable without needing external validation. I let myself exist fully in this new, evolving skin. And the process was never linear. Some days I stumbled. Some days the old doubts crept in, whispering that I was not enough, that my beauty had vanished, that my worth was tied to a reflection.
But I learned to counter those whispers with truth. My value is not skin deep. My strength is not measured in how I look, but in how I live. My love is not diminished by change, it grows with it. Reclaiming myself is ongoing. It is imperfect. It is quiet and powerful all at once. It is choosing myself when the world asks me to choose everything else first. It is touching my body with gratitude instead of guilt. It is finding joy in survival, not in meeting impossible standards. It is loving the woman I am today, the woman I was yesterday, and the woman I am still becoming. Slowly, step by step, I am returning to myself. Not the woman I used to be, but a stronger, braver, more honest version. And in that reclamation, I have found freedom. I have found pride. I have found love for my children, for my husband, and most importantly, for myself. Because surviving, growing, and changing is not the end of the story. It is proof that I am alive, and there is no greater beauty than that. There comes a moment when you realize that fear, no matter how loud, cannot be the architect of your life. I carried so many doubts, so many questions, so many silent what-ifs, that I nearly forgot the truth I had always known. Love, if it is real, endures. Letting go of fear is not easy. It is not a sudden decision or a neat declaration. It is quiet. It begins with trust, trusting in the man beside you, trust in the love you share, and trust in your own heart to recognize it. I had spent so long imagining the worst, measuring my worth against fleeting glances and imagined judgments, that I almost missed the simple, undeniable truth. The bond we build is stronger than appearances. I began to understand that love does not shrink when bodies change. It grows. It evolves. It deepens when tested by sleepless nights, messy days, and bodies that carry life and leave marks. Desire does not disappear. It transforms. Connection does not fade. It strengthens in ways that are invisible to the eye, but palpable to the heart. I saw it in his patience, his touches, the way he looked at me as though nothing had shifted except our love growing richer with time. I learned that I do not need to earn his love every day, just as he does not need to earn mine. Love, when it is real, does not require perfection. It requires honesty, vulnerability, and presence. It thrives when two people accept change, weather fear, and continue to choose each other. And in that choosing, it becomes something sacred, something that can withstand more than I ever imagined. I also realized something essential. Bodies may change, but connection can evolve. The curves, the scars, the softnesses, these are not obstacles. They are evidence of a life lived, a family created, a story shared. They do not diminish desire, they deepen intimacy, if only we allow it. And in learning to see this, I found freedom. Freedom from comparison, freedom from doubt, freedom to love fully and receive love in return. So I choose hope, quiet, steady, stubborn hope. I choose honesty with myself and with him, even when it is frightening. I choose courage, the kind that whispers, I am enough, I am loved, love endures. I choose to trust that the bond we have will not crumble under the weight of change, but will bend and strengthen, grow and flourish, quietly and powerfully. If love is real, it will stay, and I believe ours will. If you are reading this, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not alone. I know the quiet fear that visits at night, the one that whispers that you are no longer enough, that your body is no longer beautiful, that your love is no longer desired, that your worth is measured by marks and curves and changes you cannot control. I know the fear that keeps you from asking for reassurance, the fear that hides behind smiles, laughter, and the performance of strength. I know it because I have lived it, and I live it still in small, fleeting moments. But here is what I have learned, and what I want you to carry with you. Naming the fear does not make you weak. Naming it is how you reclaim power. Speak it, whisper it, write it down, whatever it takes to let it breathe outside your chest. Because once it has a name, it no longer controls you. Once it is spoken, it becomes something you can face, not something that silently defines you. You are not alone in feeling this way. Every woman who has carried life, who has loved deeply, who has endured sleepless nights, doubts, and body changes knows this fear. We hide it well because society expects resilience, because the world applauds survival without asking about the cost. But the truth is, we are all walking with invisible scars, invisible anxieties, invisible grief. And together, through honesty and solidarity, we can carry these burdens differently, lighter, more openly, more bravely. Your body is not a measure of your love or your worth. Your changes are not evidence of loss. They are proof of life lived, of courage endured, of miracles carried. Your heart, your mind, your spirit, these are the parts of you that are eternal, the parts that grow even when your body shifts. Do not let fear blind you to the strength, beauty, and resilience that already exist inside you. So to you, woman reading this, I say, trust yourself, honor yourself, love yourself even when it feels impossible. Allow yourself to ask for reassurance, to be vulnerable, to feel desire, to celebrate survival. Let go of the silent burdens that do not belong to you alone, and know that there is a sisterhood in this, an invisible hand holding yours across rooms, across miles, across stories like ours. And finally, remember this: fear is temporary. Love, in its truest form, endures. You are enough. You are chosen. You are worthy. You are seen. Carry that with you, in your reflection, in your body, in your heart. Let it be the quiet courage that guides you through sleepless nights, through changing bodies, through every doubt that ever whispered your worth was anything less than infinite. You are not alone, and you will survive, and you will thrive.
What a heartfelt journey. Let us take a moment to reflect on what we have witnessed. We did not just hear a story about pregnancy or the physical transformations that come with giving life. We entered the intimate world of a woman's fears, her doubts, her silent grief, and her quiet courage. We felt her longing to be seen, chosen, and loved, not just for the body that bears children, but for the heart, the soul, and the person she has always been. We traveled with her through sleepless nights, mirrors that seemed to betray her, and the invisible weight of expectations from herself and the world. We understood that trauma is not always visible, that strength does not mean the absence of fear, and that love, real love, does not fade when bodies change or life becomes more complex. We witnessed the slow reclamation of self, the bravery in vulnerability, and the hope that endures even in moments of doubt. The conclusion is both simple and profound. Love, for yourself and from others, is not measured by perfection, nor is it diminished by change. True love sees beyond the surface. True strength is in embracing fear, not denying it, and the courage to face your insecurities, to name them, and to keep loving despite them is a triumph in itself. So to every woman listening tonight, take this with you. You are not alone. Your fears are valid, your body is sacred, and your capacity to be loved, deeply and fully, remains infinite. And to everyone who loves and supports her, remember, your presence, patience, and affirmation can make all the difference. In the end, this story is a reminder that life changes bodies, but it also deepens hearts, enriches love, and teaches us the quiet, enduring power of courage. Once again, if you have not subscribed to this channel, please leave whatever you're doing right now and like, share, subscribe, and comment on this channel to enable us get your feedback and improve our communication and interaction with you as we prepares our subsequent episodes. Please press the like button now. Keep a date with me in Dr. Charlotte's Corner by subscribing and pressing the notification button to get immediate notification on our next episode. Pregnancy fears and trauma. He thinks I'm getting fat because I eat a lot because of my pregnancy. Keep a date with Dr. Charlotte's Corner on the coming episode. Stay tuned.